Outnumbered, outgunned, and already doomed, one American destroyer charged straight into the largest naval force Japan ever assembled and refused to turn back. In October 1944, the Pacific Ocean became the stage for the largest naval battle in human history. The Battle of Leyte Gulf was meant to decide the fate of the Philippines and ultimately, the future of the Pacific War. The Japanese Navy had gathered its remaining strength into one final gamble, a massive surface fleet designed to annihilate American invasion forces. Battleships armed with guns larger than houses, heavy cruisers bristling with firepower, and destroyers moving like wolves through open water. Against them stood a small, lightly armed group of American escort carriers and destroyers, ships never intended to fight a surface fleet. Among them was a Fletcher-class destroyer named USS Johnston, commanded by a man who understood one thing clearly: if they failed here, thousands of American soldiers would die on the beaches. Commander Ernest E. Evans was not a man shaped by caution. A Native American officer from Oklahoma, he believed leadership meant action, not permission. As dawn broke on October 25th, Johnston's radar screens lit up with enemy contacts, dozens of them. Japanese battleships and cruisers were charging directly toward the American escort carriers, whose mission was to provide air support, not fight capital ships. Evans immediately understood the situation. There would be no reinforcements, no backup, no retreat that wouldn't end in massacre. He gave an order that stunned his crew and would later echo through naval history. All engines ahead full. We are going in. USS Johnston accelerated straight toward the enemy fleet, alone at first, charging battleships that outweighed her by tens of thousands of tons. Japanese gunners could scarcely believe what they were seeing: a single destroyer attacking head-on. Evans closed the distance aggressively, weaving at high speed to throw off enemy targeting. At just the right moment, Johnston launched her torpedoes, aiming not for survival but for disruption. One torpedo slammed into the heavy cruiser Kumano, ripping her bow apart and forcing her out of the battle. In seconds, Johnston had already changed the course of the fight. Enemy guns responded with fury. Shells the size of small cars screamed through the air, erupting around Johnston in towering plumes of water. The ship shook violently as near misses slammed her hull. Still, Evans refused to turn away. He ordered smoke screens to shield the vulnerable escort carriers while Johnston kept firing with every weapon she had. Her 5-inch guns barked continuously, targeting cruisers, destroyers, anything within range. The Japanese fleet, built to crush carrier task forces, suddenly found itself confused, dodging torpedoes and smoke, unsure of how many American ships were actually attacking. When enemy shells finally found their mark, Johnston was hit hard. One blast knocked out her bridge communications, killing and wounding crew members instantly. Shrapnel tore through steel and flesh alike. Commander Evans himself was wounded early in the battle, hit by shell fragments that left him bleeding heavily. Refusing medical attention, he moved to an exposed section of the deck, continuing to command the ship while visible to enemy fire. He knew morale mattered more than safety. If the crew saw him standing, they would keep fighting. As the battle intensified, Johnston was no longer alone. Other American destroyers followed her example, charging the Japanese fleet with reckless courage. Together, they attacked again and again, launching torpedoes, firing guns, and laying smoke. The Japanese, expecting a cautious defense, instead faced an all-out assault that made them believe they were fighting a much larger force. This illusion bought precious time. Time for American aircraft, many armed with nothing but machine guns and empty bomb racks, to make attack runs, strafing decks and forcing evasive maneuvers. Johnston took hit after hit. Her speed dropped. Guns were knocked out one by one. Fires burned uncontrollably. Water poured into the hull. Still, the ship fought on. At one point, Johnston engaged a Japanese destroyer at close range, blasting it repeatedly despite having only one operational gun left. Crew members passed ammunition by hand, ignoring wounds and exhaustion. This was no longer a mission, it was defiance made steel. Eventually, Johnston was surrounded. Massive Japanese battleships closed in, their guns leveling toward the crippled destroyer. One final salvo struck her amidships, tearing open her engine room and cutting power completely. Dead in the water, burning and sinking, Johnston had no escape left. Commander Evans gave his last order to abandon ship. As the crew prepared to evacuate, Evans was last seen helping wounded sailors into the water. He went down with his ship. But Johnston's sacrifice had worked. The Japanese fleet, battered, confused, and convinced they were facing a larger American force, turned away. The escort carriers were saved. Thousands of soldiers on Leyte survived because one destroyer refused to retreat. USS Johnston sank beneath the waves, but her stand became one of the most extraordinary acts of courage in naval history. Survivors floated for hours in shark-infested waters, clinging to debris, wounded and exhausted. Many did not make it. Those who survived carried the story forward, not as a tale of victory but of honor. Commander Ernest Evans was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, the first Native American naval officer to receive it. USS Johnston would later be found on the ocean floor. Resting deeper than the Titanic, her guns still pointed forward. This was not a battle won by firepower. It was won by refusal, by men who understood that sometimes the mission is not to survive, but to stand long enough so others can. USS Johnston did not change history by sinking an empire. She changed it by buying time with courage, and in doing so, she proved that even the smallest ship, commanded by the right man, can challenge an entire fleet and be remembered forever.